Hi everybody and welcome to another piano review video here on the Merriam Pianos YouTube channel. In today's video we're comparing the Garritan CFX with the VSL Synchron Library CFX. Same piano model, two very different musical experiences, but two very enjoyable ones. This is another video in our whole series where we are diving into the software side of the piano world, not something that we had previously done, and man, oh man, are we ever having a blast, and we're getting tons of really positive and encouraging comments. I think people are enjoying a different look or a new look, or sometimes for them maybe the first look at this whole world of software-driven pianos. Anyway, if it's the first time that you have dropped by, and particularly if you enjoy what you see here, we would really appreciate if you subscribed and become part of our community of piano lovers from all over the world. So without further ado, let's get started with this comparison of two fantastic VST plugins right away. We were excited to do it, and by golly, we are doing it. We have got the Garritan CFX and the Vienna Symphonic Library CFX, and we are doing a back-to-back comparison. Now, I read some comments from a few people, and they were respectful comments that said, this comparison's already been done, might as well skip over it. They've covered it thoroughly. Well, I had a chance to check out what comparisons existed out there, and first of all, that's not really the point. I wanted to compare them. And so if I'm going to compare them, why not run camera and see if we get anything interesting, entertaining, and helpful to anybody else? So that's half the point. But when I went out there to see the other commentary and some of the other analysis that had been done, the one that I came across that was most prominent or easy to find was by a channel called Gamma 1734. Really beautiful classical player, clearly, and did quite a comprehensive side-by-side comparison of a number of different presets playing over a number of different well-known, in some cases not so well-known classical repertoire. So definitely a valuable resource. But that was not what I thought we might be able to bring to the discussion. And as I said, the first part of this is always kind of the musical fun of it anyway. So we moved ahead and we're doing the comparison between these two plugins, recording the same model of piano, but definitely not the same piano. And it's been a fascinating exploration. So I'm going to share every point, every kind of interesting tidbit that came up for me, because if you happen to be shopping between these two plugins, this might just be useful to you. So let's get some context first. So the Garritan CFX runs for about $200 US. The VSL plugin, the Synchron library plugin that we're using with the CFX, is not the top full library. It's the standard library, which is I think about half the price, but it's still fairly pricey. And if I remember correctly, it's maybe about $100 more than the Garritan, even for the standard one. The full one is almost $700. I mean, we're talking close to or in excess of triple the price of the Garritan. So, I mean, in the one hand, they're not exactly apples to apples, but a few $100 if this is going to be your main plugin in a studio space, or if you were buying this in lieu of a more expensive acoustic piano or digital, I mean, a few $100 here and there, just get the one you like, unless it's really crazy difference in price. So anyway, that's what we're talking about in terms of a budget or in terms of a price point. The two pianos themselves are quite different. You can tell after playing them for many hours, and a lot of these plugins, when I sit down to do the research, sometimes I'll be with them for an hour, sometimes I'll be with them for 45 minutes, sometimes I'll be with them for 3-4 hours. Depends on how long it takes to really form an opinion and really work your way through the plugin. I intended to sit down and not spend too much time in preparation for this video because I've already compared both of those. But I wound up playing for quite a while because I was fascinated by the differences in not just the plugin, but the pianos themselves. So let me say this. These two plugins do not deliver the same product. I'm not sure that I'm entirely settled on which one I think is better, but they're definitely not the same. So just because they're the same piano, you really are not getting the same musical experience. Second, the way the plugin operates, you may prefer the interface of one over the other. So that may be a deciding factor for you as well. But here are the top level observations I've made. The VSL delivers a very high level of detail. And no matter how much tweaking I was able to do, I never quite got that level of detail out of the Garritan. And I noticed it both when I was dealing with just really super dry close miking, as well as when I went to start mixing in some of the more ambient room mics. In either case, the treble clarity, the treble detail out of the VSL was just significantly more. And I noticed it on both monitors as well as the headphones. So for solo playing, and particularly for classical, where you'd have a wide range of textures and dynamics really exposed, I think, I don't know, to me, there's no question that you would prefer the VSL. It's just that much more real. But for everyday playing and for tracking, especially if it was going to be within a project, I'm not really sure there's a clear winner. It almost comes down to which character of the piano you prefer. Now, I've got both loaded up in Logic. We've got the Garritan on the left, we've got VSL on the right, as you can see. And they're set up a little bit differently. And of course, check out the individual reviews if you'd like. We've done them for both of these. With the Garritan, they have three, basically they have three different mic setups, and they've captured a full sample set for each one of those mic setups. And then depending on how taxed your system is, you can just scale that down. And so that is presented here, mic perspective. The full means you're getting the full sample set for all three mic placements. And that is classic. So this is a set of microphones typically used for classical recording, and placement is common amongst classical piano engineers, contemporary, and then players. So these are three different sets of mics, different sets of mic placements, and obviously the resulting three sample sets. So the player is beautiful. The classic is great. I was not as big a fan of the contemporary, but it definitely caught a little more of the treble detail. But then you lost some of the ambient warmth of the instrument as well. So anyway, those are the three. Over on the Synchron, what you have in this version is 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 5 different captures, and you can mix and match them at will. So you've got sort of a main and a main center. This is really the Deca tree, and if anyone doesn't know what a Deca tree is, Google it, because I don't want to take up too much time in the video explaining it, but it's kind of a 3 microphone configuration typically used in classical recording. So you can mix those in and turn them on and off just by hitting those switches. Then you've got a mid-range mic. So that would be normally something 5 to 10 feet away from the piano, not anything too crazy. You've got close mic, which would usually be mics right inside the belly of the instrument. And then we've got a stereo room mix. So instead of the Deca tree, you've actually got room mics, stereo room mics placed quite a bit further away from the instrument, truly to capture the room. So we've got 5 channels that we can mix at once, at will, versus over here where you've really got 2 channels that you can mix, and you can't do any more than 2 at a time. So a little more flexibility with the Synchron if you happen to like what they do. but a little more variety of microphones over on the Garritan. I did promise we were going to start playing, so let's do exactly that. I'm going to start with the Garritan actually, just because it's on my left, and we are going to start with a classic mic placement. There we go. So I'm going to put on a very similar setting on the VSL and try to play the same thing. So we're not going to get into the decatry for a moment because that really tends to distort things. So we've got some room mix, we've got some mid, and then we've got close, which is about the same proportion that we've got here. And I'll also note that I've got both reverb engines turned off. So all we're hearing is the core sample. We're not hearing any other processing that's occurring on this whatsoever. So let's hop over to the VSL. And I've got just a little bit of a velocity curve applied to the VSL. And let's see what we get. So I just hear more detail in the air around the tone. The interesting thing is I actually think I like the piano itself better, the one they captured in Abbey Road with the Garritan. There's a certain brassiness around the way that they've voiced the mid-range and the lower mid-range of that piano that I like more than how they voiced the piano at the VSL studios, the Synchron studios. So we're talking about this range down here. So it's nice and level, but listen to the kind of the boominess or the gutsiness. So it's definitely clearer, but there's a bit of a width to the tone on the Garritan one, right in that range. Another thing I noticed is there's actually some rather bizarre harmonics that come off of two bass notes on the VSL that I didn't really notice before, which I believe is on the E flat and the E. You can sort of hear that high pitched, which is normal for bass strings. It's a little more pronounced though than I'm used to over on the Garritan. Not there at all. So sometimes that's the bass string, and sometimes that is just how you voice the hammer will sometimes bring more or less of those types of harmonics out. So I don't know, that was just a bit of a fragment that I picked up as I was going through these two. So I'm hearing a little more detail in the air of the VSL. Another interesting thing I noticed about the Synchron is the room mix. They have maintained the piano in its normal configuration as if it was playing with an orchestra. So if you solo this room mix, you're actually going to get a hard pan off to the left. Oh, it would be helpful if I actually went to the VSL. And you can't really adjust that. That's just where they've got the room mics picking up the piano. It's kind of interesting. Let's listen to another one of the Garritan sample sets, because of course we're only ever getting the same sample sets off of these in the Synchron, so it's a little easier in one interface to manipulate and play with the sound. here with the Garritan, you do have to jump around between sample sets a little bit. So that was the classic. Let's listen to contemporary. Another thing you notice is the difference in the rooms. To my ear, the Abbey Road studio that they're recording in is probably a smaller room, and you're getting a little more room reflection because there's a shimmer, there's a thickness to the shimmer and the Garritan. And there's also a little more inharmonicity. Oh, wish that word was easier for me to say. Basically, artifacts of the sound which isn't necessarily connected to the kind of the principal tone of the note. You can really hear it if you kill the close mics. So let's just do that and only have the mids here. Listen to what we got. So now that's just the tons of shimmer up there, lots of texture to the ambience. When we come over here though, to the VSL, we'll just turn this up so it's a bit easier to hear. If we want something even a little further away, let's hop over here, grab both of these. Like, listen to the precision on that. Now that's actually going to be slightly closer than the mids. Potentially. Love to know where the mics were actually placed. So there's more of that kind of spray happening on the Garritan, whereas it's tighter, a little more detailed, and a little more trebly actually on the VSL. Besides that, the differences really come down to user interface. I like on the Synchron that if you get away from using the presets, which I certainly did, I kind of realized, well, all these presets are actually just more or less available to me in the mix without having to, you know, constantly deal with that kind of stuff. And we've got reverb if you want to engage with it, but there's really no need to engage with it. You can use just the natural sound of the room. Everything's here. You can turn it on and off at will. You can mix it. You can adjust all of the pans. So in this respect, it's a little closer to, say, the Ravenscroft in their approach. Pick your samples, pick your microphones, mix them at will. Makes it feel a little more like you're actually mixing out of a legitimate recording session. Over on the Garritan, I like the fact that you've got a variety of microphones and mic placements, but what would be even more killer is if you could have all 6 channels loaded at once, but then your machine would just go and, you know, not want to work because you'd be dealing with like 10 gigs loaded up at once. So I get why they can't, but even the way they have set it up, there's still plenty of variety of different textures that you can achieve. So I would say out of the box, if you're looking for a plugin which delivers a wide variety of recording approaches and compression settings and things that are going to be a little more specific to genres and more contemporary recording, I really like the Garritan. And at the, you know, at the $200 price point, man, you can't beat that. It's such a versatile plugin, and I really enjoy playing it as well. When it comes to exposed solo playing though, I'm still going to have to go with the VSL here for just the sheer amount of detail and the fact that it's a seamless experience mixing and matching to get the perfect sound based on the type of project or the type of track that you're trying to output. They both use a pretty high number of samples, but the Synchron is on a different planet, even the standard one versus the Garritan. The Garritan loads up about 1.5 gigs every time you go to one of those presets. And depending on how many of these channels you have active in the Synchron, you could be as high as 7 gigabytes or 6.5, I think, gigabytes worth of samples. So significantly more. Not every machine is going to deal well with that. I've got a decent amount of RAM on this machine. I think I've got 32 gigs of RAM. Somebody asked if I was using the M1 or x86. This is an Intel chip. Haven't got around to splurging on the M1 yet. I can get a few more years out of this machine for sure, and I definitely will before I have to invest in more gear. My wife does not like that. When I do that, that is. So we've got a user experience difference with the mixing, the ability to access. I like that on the Garritan you have the built-in channel strips for your EQ. I mean, that's not a huge deal because, of course, you're in a DAW, so you can just stick an EQ anywhere in your kind of your chain, your signal chain, it'll be fine. But it is kind of nice to have it right there. And I like that you've got the quick switch between audience and performer. So, you know, there's aspects of both that I really enjoy, and I think it's really a matter of which type of project you're looking for. Because I think in a lot of cases you could totally get away with the Garritan and be super, super happy with it. But no question, when something's really exposed and you're going for literally trying to trick the ear into thinking that maybe you just took in like a Deutsche Grammophon, you know, a beautiful solo classical piano concert recording, VSL is going to do it for you. Anyway, hope you have enjoyed that comparison between the two. My name is Stu Harrison once again. This has been Merriam Pianos on YouTube, and if you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe, we would really appreciate if you did that because we love seeing you back for more and more videos. Please comment, let us know what you think, and by all means, have yourselves a great day.